Hello everyone, welcome back. In this video, we will discuss about the validations. In my previous video, we have defined the some of the fields are mandatory, but even we are entering those field values, system is not validating those fields is entered or not. Even we are not passing any value or we are passing null value, system accepting those values. It should not happen ideally. We have to validate those fields. To validate those fields, we will write the validations. So what is validations? So validations are the optional part of the business object which will be helping us to maintain the business object consistency. Suppose some of the fields really required to create that particular entry in the table, then we have to validate using these validations. For example, we have in the travel view, we have the begin date, we have the end date. Somebody entered the begin date greater than the end date, then how it is possible to create that kind of table entry? Because begin date should be always less than to the end date. As of now, we don't have that kind of validation in our business object. We have to validate those fields, or begin date should not be in the past. Suppose begin date I am giving the some past date, that is also incorrect. So these kind of validation we have to put in our business object, and these validation will be automatically invoked by the business object framework on the particular trigger conditions. Trigger condition can be defined during when we define the validation based on when this particular validation should trigger. It should trigger on create, it should trigger on update or delete. We can define when this validation on trigger, and second thing, on which field change based on some field also we have to define that particular validations. Whenever somebody change this particular field, then this particular validation should trigger. That also we can define in this particular thing, or we can combine both things. On the create, when this particular field get changed, then we have to trigger this validation. That also we can do using this validation. So what we have to do, basically we have to give the validation, then validation name. Basically this will be the function module name, not function, method name, on save or validation name we can say. It will be differ for each validation, and we have to always all the validation will be triggered during the save sequence. Once the interaction phase is over, when you click on save button or when you click on create button, then after you can't update any values. That time this validation will trigger. That time those particular values will be checked if those values changed, or during the operations, which operation you have defined in the validation. So this is always trigger on save. So that is the reason we are writing here on save, and we are defining which operation you want, during what operation you have did, for that the validation should trigger. That you have to define in the CUD here, and on which field change, what all are the field change, then you have to call this validation, that you have to define here. So this is the syntax of the definition which we have to define in behavior definition for that particular validation. And we have to implement obviously in the RAP handler method for validate. This is the behavior pool class. We have to implement this particular validation code. We have to implement. Suppose I have changed the begin date and end date. So during the create I want to or create and update, I want to validate those fields. So I have to define create update, and I have to give the field names here. This is the begin date and end date field. During the create you have to define. So whenever you click on create, this validation will trigger during the save sequence. Everything is over. When you click on create button, those validated we will validate programmatically. The date should be less than, begin date should be greater than today's date, and end date should be less than greater than begin date. Those kind of validation we will do. Not only this validation, suppose we want to validate the customer ID. Customer ID is mandatory. Somebody entered a customer ID or not, if he have entered the customer ID is correct or not. That kind of validation we will put in our code. So these are the important points again related to the validation for execution order. For example, for the same condition you define the multiple validations. Suppose on the create begin date you have multiple validation, so you can't sure that if there are the multiple validation which is triggering on the same condition, then the order of the execution you don't have any control. Any validation can call first and any validation call for that particular condition later, so that you have to make sure. And suppose you should not write in the validation, obviously we have to write the behavior pool class some code to validate those things. We should not write any EML modify statement. We can't modify during the, because it's triggered during the save sequence. That time and onwards you should not write any modify statement inside the validation method. And two important thing, if something goes wrong, you have error, you have to report in the reported structure we have in the interface of that particular method. And if you are committing some change, during commit you are getting some validation, you are doing some validation, then you have to fill the failed and reported both the structure. That we will fill when we write our code. So these are the validation we have to do. Since these are the fields in our case are mandatory: customer, agency, dates, status, currency code and booking fee. So we have to validate each and every field on save. When we are creating these particular fields, we have to check this particular field got filled or not, or if it is filled then it is correct or not. Those kind of validation we have to do for the travel and booking supplement as well. I will not gonna implement each and everything. I will write the code and give you guys, but some of the methods we will implement and see how validation work. So without wasting the time, let's jump into the system. We will do the validation for some of the fields which we have defined. We will implement our first validation called the customer validation. So what we will do, just we will see the customer ID user entered or not. If he didn't enter, then we will give the error message. If he have entered the customer ID, is it correct or not, that we will validate. To write that validation, I will write after the actions. You can write anywhere in the travel, define behavior for the travel anywhere. So validation I want to write, so my validation name, validate customer ID, customer, you can write validate customer, and obviously it should be on save, so you can write on save. And what operation you want to do, I want to check on the create operation. And what field you want to do, I can give the field name as well. So in this case the customer ID field I want to check. So you can see customer ID field and semicolon, and just close the bracket. That's it. That's how we have to define the validations. Once we define the validation, just you have to click on Control 1, add method for validation. So just click on the add method for validation, and it will create one method for validate customer. You can see currently we are getting error. I know why we are getting. We usually get, first we have to activate this Control F3, then we have to go to behavior pool class, then we have to activate Control F3, then our error is gone. So you can see in the validate customer also we are getting the importing keys where we have the travel ID. What we will do, based on this travel ID, we will read the customer from for those particular travel ID, what all are the travel IDs are available. Once we read those travel ID, let me do F2 over this one. There only the two structure, failed and reported structure. We will validate those for those travel ID, what all are the customers currently available. Those customers are correct or not. First we will check customer really available for each and every entity or not. If it is customer is available, we will fetch the data from the /demo/ customer table. That is the table, which demo table to save all the customer. You can see master data table where we have all the customer. Those customers are available in that table or not. If it is not available, then we will give the appropriate error message. Just quickly implement this particular method as well. So we will write the read entity statement here. You can write the long form or short form. Today I will use the short form. Read entity, and you can give the entity name. In this case I will yi_travel TechM I will read. I will read this entity, and I want to just read only one field, that is called the fields I can define. Customer ID I want to read. I don't want to read other fields because I want to check for those what all are the customer entered by this particular user, those are valid or not. So that is the reason I want to read the customer IDs. Then I will use the with I have to define some table. So in this case I have to create one table. I have to pass the what all are the for which travel IDs you want to read the customer IDs. So I have already keys table ID. So with corresponding I will use, as usual we do, keys. So it will create, since the corresponding operator is the constructor operator, it will create one internal table and all the corresponding travel IDs will be passed and we will get the result back. Control space, result we will get in the LT underscore customer. Temp, we can say temporary customer data we will get first. All the customer data will go for all the travel ID, or we have to do in local mode. In local, what happened? Shift F1, read entity, what is the issue? Yeah, read entity in local mode I can do here. Shift F1, this is the entity I want to read in local mode and this is the customer. Control F3. Once I read those all the customer, I want to make sure I want to hit the table called the demo. Controls / I will declare one internal table, data LT underscore cust, which will be having the valid customer, type table, type sorted table. I can write type sorted table of /dmo / customer. I can have customer. This is the table I have to use with unique key customer ID. So this is the table I want to create. If you see this table, demo underscore customer, and if you do F8, it is having master data table for all the customer, which is having the customer detail. So let me come back. I declared this table in my validation method, Shift F1. Now what I want to do, I just want to hit this table based on the customer which I got, and just I will get all the customer based on this table and see those customers are available in this table or not. So for doing that, before hitting that, I have to make sure that let me create one more table, LT customer, or this is the table I want to get, control all the customer I want to get. Okay, so basically what I want to do, I want to write one select statement, select customer IDs. I want to get the customer ID. Select, let me select from this particular table, Control C, Control V. Fields I can write like this, fields, I want to get the customer ID, so customer ID, and for all entries I will use for all entries in LT customer, Control C, Control V, where customer ID is equal to Control C. I have to write @ because it's new syntax. I have to host the variables, @, oh, 1 second, sorry, Shift @ Control V, customer ID. That's it. If size bus initial, what is the issue? Into clause is missing. Obviously I have to write the for all entries where into data, into table, sorry, not data, data data LT underscore cust DB. This is the DB customers. So like that. And if size bus is initial, this is normal, is initial, Shift F1. then we have to proceed further. Okay, it got stuck, something wrong, let it format. So before hitting this table, we have to make sure this LT customer temp should not have the duplicate entries to work for all entries, or it should not have the initial values also. So to do that, first we will delete, Control C, Control V, delete this internal table, delete where customer ID is initial, D is initial. This is one check I want to do, and I want to remove the duplicate entries also. To do that, okay, I created this table for this purpose. Let me do one thing, Control V, let me pass this data in this one, Control, okay, corresponding data of this table, Control C, Control C. This table I want to pass, but discarding duplicate, we have discarding duplicate, and X mapping we have to pass, mapping where customer ID equal to customer ID, accept, and this is the mapping we have to pass, LT cus shift F1. What is the issue we are getting? Let me put dot shift F1. This is the mapping we have to pass, and now we will use this table instead of this table. I will just delete the duplicate entry, Control V, Control V, customer ID is initial, because the naming is different here. Here we have customer underscore ID, and here we have customer ID, so that is the reason we have to change. So this is very important. And once we delete, and one more thing, okay, that's enough, Control F3. Once we get the data from the database for those all the customer IDs, what we have to do, we have to loop through our travel, F2. Okay, keys and field we have got the LT customer temp. So in this case, I have got the customer ID along with the travel ID also. Let me give the rename, Control 1. That will be rename this one. This should be LT underscore travel, not the only the customer detail. It is basically LT travel, shift F1. And now what I will do, Control C, I will loop through the this LT underscore travel, Control space, loop at assigning, Control V, assigning field symbol I can use, or you can define the ls underscore travel, and one by one I will check all the things here, shift F1. First I will check this particular, if in this Control shift, if the customer ID is initial, I want to give the error. First condition, my Control V, the customer ID is initial, then I want to give the error. I have to fill the failed structure basically. And second thing I want to give, when the customer ID and or, not and, or Control C, this customer ID is not exist. So I have to check the line exists this particular table. In this table, Control C, Control V, and we have to pass the customer ID should be equal to this particular customer ID which we have. Control C, Control V, let me remove this one. If line exists, okay, I think I did spelling mistake, EX not EXISTS or EXIOKSTS, sorry. So I'm just checking in this customer, this particular customer ID is available or not. Shift F1 or not. I can put, if it is available then fine. If it is not available or the customer ID is initial, in both the cases I want to fill the failed structure. Let me do F2. Failed and reported, both the structure I want to fill. First let me fill the failed structure. So basically append, so Control V. If you see the F2 of the failed structure, we have to see F2 failed. What is the derived type? We have to travel taken, and we have to fill the travel ID. Basically travel ID we have to fill, or that's it, I think so. So I can do append value. I will create new value over here, and the one second, we have to pass the travel ID. So travel ID, how we can pass? Either directly travel ID, but we should use the %tky in this case. So if you see this structure again, I just want to see again F2 in the failed structure yi travel taken. I want to pass, this should be tky is there. Yeah, we have the tky, we have to pass this tky, only the travel ID. So we can access directly tky, %tky, and we can pass. So let me use tky, control space t. Oh no, I will not get value help because I'm constructing the value, and I can pass this control C. We have the %tky obviously here, and this append this value to control space. We have failed structure, failed, control space, and we have the table called yi travel taken, and like this we have to do F2. So you can see in this state we just passed the travel ID and we have appended the fail structure. So in the same way we have to fill the reported structure also. So control alt arrow down button, that time instead of failed we have to fill the reported as well, reported. And along with that, but one more thing we have to pass the message also, %msg message. If you can see the structure of this particular reported, let me do F2 and see the structure of the reported reported variable or changing variable. And since we are giving the error message for yi travel taken, so we have to see for this, and we can see we have the travel ID. Obviously we have to pass travel ID, along with we have to pass the message, which message we want to give. Usually we will pass the message in the travel, but this message is type of this particular if ABAP behavior message. If you open this one, here we have to pass the exception object. So in this case we don't have any ready-made exception class, so we can create the exception, but we have already one exception class which is used by the demo environment. I will gonna use same, so that is called demo cm flight messages. This is particular exception class which is derived from cx static check. If you want to create, you can create your own exception class and you can define your messages. I will gonna use this one only because I can see here customer unknown, one of the message we can display using this particular message class. So basically if you see the constructor method of this one, control O, constructor, if you see here constructor, let's see, constructor, sorry, not constructor. If you see the constructor, in that we are passing the customer ID somewhere here, customer ID, and this customer ID field further it is used for this customer messages. to display this particular customer message called customer unknown. I will gonna use this particular message to do the exception. So let me go to my class again. So we can explicitly declare this particular class, or we can do inline as well. In this case, I will do inline new Control V. Let me copy this class name, Control C. I will take him, Control V, Control space, or you can do Shift Enter. I will pass the tax ID. Obviously, I have the already tax ID in form of constant begin of this one, Control C, and to pass the text ID also I have to use this particular class reference, customer unknown. Attribute is not required because it is already we are mapping the customer ID. We already have the customer ID. Control C, Control V, customer ID. We can pass severity as an error. Either you can pass directly E, or you can use again our global interface ABAP behave. This time we have little messages underscore message, and you can pass here again severity, Control space error, and that's it. I think other detail is not required because we are just passing the customer error message from this. So delete. This is also not required. Delete. Customer ID we already passed. Username also not required as of now. Delete. So like that we have to pass the we created inline this particular exception object, and we have passed tab. You can create inline based on our requirement we have created. Now after passing this message, one more important field we have to pass, that is called percentage element. What we want to say here in this, if you do F2 over here, the one thing called here percentage element in this particular tab, just want to indicate that this error for which element. To indicate that we have to pass this percentage element, Control C, and we have to pass the customer ID again. So in this case, the one more thing we have to pass, Control V, the element customer ID. I don't have anything here, so let me pass customer ID, Control C, Control V. We are not getting the help because we didn't declare first this particular variable. That is the reason. Equal to, again we can use the same if underscore ABAP behave mark the field. So in this case we have MK, Control space on. So this is particular mark, we are marking this field for our result. That is the reason we are using MK and marking as a 01. Either you can pass directly 01, or you can use this particular interface values. So like that we are filling the reported and failed structure. Shift F1, and let me activate Control F3. Let's put breakpoint. Before that let me see it is active or not. Let me activate one more time and put the breakpoint in the read entity statement, and let me open the, in this case since we have to change the customer, we will see not the approver app, we will see the travel app. Just open this one, service binding for the processor, and descending order, select this one and preview it. As soon as you click on the preview, you can see the let's click on go button. The debugger got triggered because we have breakpoint. Not only there, we have breakpoint in the authorization method also. Let me remove from here. Let me do F8 and just come here, select anyone. I just want to change the customer ID and make it empty. As I told you, if I didn't told that customer ID, when you enable the validation for create operation, it will automatically enable the validation for the update as well. So let me click on edit button. As of now there is a customer ID. Let me remove the customer ID from here and try to save it, the initial customer ID, and breakpoint got triggered because we put the breakpoint. Let me do F5 for this keys. If you see in the key, customer ID key is 1, For this customer ID, it is try to read from the transactional buffer the data. Currently in the transactional buffer the customer ID is 0. We have deleted the, if the data is not available in transactional buffer, then it will try to read from the database. So in this case we got the customer ID is 000, and now we will get the data lt underscore cust. For this particular custom, all the, if we are passing the multiple travel, in this case we are doing this one lt underscore cust, in this case 00 only, but the initial IDs we deleted here. Oh, I did here typical mistake. We always have to check the in the for all entries we always have to check the data is initial or not. I didn't do. I will get all the customer from the database. That should not happen. I should check this particular lt underscore cust should not be initial. Anyway, it is fine. It is not hampering me. Then I will loop one by one all the customer IDs which I got through the key fields through here, and I will check customer ID should not be initial. If it is initial, in this case I will give the error message. You can see I am filling the failed entity. You can see I filled the appropriate messages as well in the reported as well. F7, F6. If you see the reported also, I have filled the message class over here, and the element structure as well I have filled. If you open this element structure, you can see here as well, percentage element reported, percentage element customer ID is a 01. So like that we have to fill the error and reported message. Let me do F8, and in front end you can see we got the successfully error. So let me pass some dummy instead of this thing, something we have to pass, and try to save again. This time I pass the, okay, it's saying it should be 6 digit, 1 2 3 4 5. Let me pass 5 digit and try to save. I think in this case this customer is available. Let me do F5, lt travel ID is 001, customer is 11646, F5. In this case it is not 0, we have one customer. I will try to read this customer is available in database or not, and Sai Sabasi got 4. So this customer is not available, so lt underscore cust db is empty. So in this case also we should get the error message, F8, and we'll go front end, customer ID is unknown. The last thing, let's pass some correct customer and try to save it. If I do F5, in this case it is correct one, so we'll get from the database as well, lt underscore customer db, we got the 4th one, and this time this message will not trigger and the validation will pass and we will not display any message, and it will successfully save. So this is how we are validating the customer ID. Let's define some of the other validation in our travel, booking and booking supplement. We're not gonna do this much coding now. Just go and define and implement. I have already ready-made code is available. So first we will define the validation, remaining validation for our travel. So we will validate the dates also. I will explain, no worry, but again just we have to understand the concepts now, not the each and every code line. So that is, I have to define these all the validations for our travel entity. So for each and every validation we have to implement the method. So what you have to do, just control F3, you will get the warning obviously, and once let me define the validation for the booking as well, control C. We will define after our feature control V, left F1, and same we will define for the booking supplement also, control C. Up after the feature control V, shift F1, control F3. Once we define everything, just you have to method for each validation we have to implement different method. So you will get obviously warnings. You can do control 1. So once you do the control 1, you can implement all the 4 missing method to validate date, validate the status, validate currency code, and validate booking fee. So let me, in the booking class, let me implement all the, in the travel class, sorry, not in booking class, I have implemented all 4 method. But if you see the what we can say, the structure of the validations, it's almost similar. So you can say validate customer we already done. After that, we validate booking date. Means structure means interface. We are always importing keys for those particular validations, and we have to export obviously result. If you do F2 over here, you will be having keys and failed and reported. Keys, you will get the keys for that particular travel instance, and you have to fill the error messages in failed and reported message for all the booking fee. For when we are validating booking fee, we already validated customer, and we have to validate currency code, we have to validate the date, we have to validate the status as well. Control F3. Once we done this one, let me implement the for our travel also. This we did for booking, let me implement for the travel also. Control 1. No suggestion available, shift F1, control F3. I think travel we have already implemented. A date status we have to implement for the booking, I think so. So let me go to booking, control 1, implement all 5 methods. Yeah, I want to implement this time in the booking behavior pool classes. So you can see in the booking we don't have much method, but we have just now we have added this all the validation, validate for connection, currency ID, customer again, flight price, and date status, validate status. These all things again we have to validate, and corresponding methods already declared. Let me activate, control F3 here as well, and same thing we will do for the our booking supplement as well. This will implement again in the booking supplement class. That's very important. In booking supplement class we don't have any method. We first time we have defined all 3 methods. So let me do control F3. So this is the way we have control F3. Now we have defined the validation. Didn't implement it yet. We have to write some of the methods we will implement also, no need to worry, and I will directly explain you guys. Let's do the implementation for the begin date. We will do one by one all the implementations quickly. I will not write one by one line all the code now, because too many implementation, it will take too much time. So I have already ready-made code. So we will do for validate date first. Let me control click, and I have already for validate date. I will explain, don't worry. I generally don't do like this, control C, but I feel that if we understand the concept, then unnecessary time wasting, shift F1. But I will explain, you will understand, I'm sure. So in this validate date, what we are doing, we are validating the date. So same way we did for validate customer, based on these keys, we are reading the, instead of customer, we are reading the begin date and end date for all the travels. So I'm taking in the travel table, and once I got the data in the travel table, I'm looping through this one. I should control 1, you can rename it, rename if you want, LT underscore travel for the local travel, LT underscore travel, and you can do, and once we got the data in this travel table, I'm looping through all the data. Even you will not specify the key fields in the field, you will get automatically all key fields like we got for the customer as well. So and you will get the customer ID, travel ID, begin date and end date in this particular LT travel. Now I am checking if the end date is less than the begin date. I'm looping through all the data. If end date is less than the begin date, I'm telling there is some issue in the end date and begin date. So I've filled the failed structure to give the message in the front end. I am using the same class which I have shown you for customer. There we have the text ID, begin date, DEF, end date. So there is a begin date and end date message is already defined. If you can see in this one, if you open this class again and begin day, if you open this message class also, control C, control shift A, control V, this is the message class and the message number is 003. in the 003 message you can see begin date must not be after end date. So like that message, and that customer ID message also we got from here only. So like that, this is we are getting the message. Let me go back one step back, alt back. So like that we are displaying this message, and we are passing begin date, end date or travel ID, and we are indicating using the element for which fields this error message is, to indicate that we have passed this particular begin date and end date in the element as a indicator as a 01 or on, we can say we have passed the on. So like that we are displaying same way how we did for customer, we have to do the give the error message for the this dates also. Second thing, end date is greater than end date is less, and second thing, if begin date is less than the current system date. This is very important thing. We have, this is utility class CL. In classical ABAP we used to use the system variable, but here we can use the utility class to get the lot of information like the system date, system language. So this is the utility class CL ABAP context info. You have to remember we have to use this one to get the system date. So this will get the system date and it will compare. If this begin date is less than the system date, then we will display the message. But this message, again the same message, begin date on or this is again the different message we have. If you click on this one, so this is the 005, and if you go here as well, 005 is status is not valid, begin date 004, sorry, begin date must be on or after system date. Like that message we will get. So these all the messages already defined in the flight data model. I'm reutilizing those messages. If you want, you can create your own message class and you can define your messages accordingly. So this is how we are doing. Just now let's preview the app again. First let me activate, alt back, control F3. Our validations are working or not. If you want to put breakpoint and check, that also we can do, no need to worry. And we can open YI Travel TechM and just select this one, click on preview button. We already previewing. Let me preview once again, no need to worry. It's taking a little bit time. Let's click on go button. Open any one of the travel, try to change some data. Let me go in edit mode. Let me pass end date before the September. So let me pass 2023, let me pass 20, some date I will pass and try to save. So you can see debugger got triggered because we have the validation on place, validate date. Let me do F5. I got for this particular travel ID, I got the begin date and end date, basically begin date and end date I have got LT underscore travels for the 00, if you see the keys 001 LT underscore travel, read entities, I got the begin date, this one 28, and end date I got this one from the transactional buffer. Because we have changed 2020, you can see it read from the transactional buffer. Let me loop through this LT underscore travel F5 and check the end date. Obviously end date is less than begin date, so we will get the we are passing this error message and we will get the in front end error message. You can see begin date must not be after the end date. So again I will change some date here. Let me pass something 26. Let me pass 21, or let me pass today's date 26. Instead of 26, let me pass 24, October 24. But instead of October, start date and try to save it. It will give again error message because end date is not changed. So let me pass end date appropriately, 24/11. So 11 June, begin date must not be after end date. So this again I will pass in the December 19. Okay, let me try to save. This is October and try to save now. F5, but this time we will get another message because F8, and let me see. So begin date must not be after system date. Currently you can see the begin date is the system date. So another message we got. So we have to pass some appropriate 2024, and we can pass one something 1 October 2024 and try to save now. So you can see this error is indicated here as well. Let me try to save. I change the data. This time I should not get any error. Let me do F8, and this time I didn't get error and data is got saved. And this is how the error message we are displaying for the begin date and end date. Let's do quickly one more validation just to showing purpose. For example, if you want to validate the status as well, let me go to the validate status class. Here we can do status. I have already code for the status as well. So let me copy this one, Control C. It's a very simple code, nothing much. Control V. Here what we are doing, same based on the keys, we are reading the overall status and we are confirming if overall status is open, cancelled or accepted, then okay. If anything other, we are displaying the error messages like we displayed for the other. Shift F1, Control F3. And let me refresh the application and try to give some different overall status. This time I am disabling all the breakpoints. So I don't want to trigger the breakpoint. Let me refresh the application and try to give something ABC if I am able to give. Let me click on edit button. Here I have this button, but if I want to give something else, I can give here. And you can see I am getting the error. Try to click on save. So enter a text maximum character 1. So let me enter something Q and try to click on save. So status Q is not valid. I'm getting the message. But anyway, nobody will give this wrong. Somebody will give the drop down and he will try to accept. But in this case, some user enters some wrong value and try to save without validation. It will go through those validations. So let me try that way also. What I will do, let me comment it out, this one, Control Shift less than. I'm trying, I'm not sure how it will work, Control F3 and try to do that way. Let me refresh the application. I'm getting all the messages in from the feed reader also because it got failed. So no need to worry. So I have activated, I refresh the application. Let me do edit. This time let me give some Q and try to save. Q and try to save. It got saved. So this is wrong now. There is no status called Q in the database, but still it got saved. Ideally it should not save. So that is the reason the validation is important. For the we have to give some validation and correct value. In this video we have learned about the validations. We have defined the validations and some of the validation we implemented as well. I didn't implement all the validations, it is not required, but in real time you have to validate each and every field and booking supplement and remaining validation if it is really needed, because main purpose of this video to understand the validation concept. So we understood. Other thing is the programming, and programming also almost the same programming we have to use, same error message, the failed structure we have to fill, same reported structure we have to fill, and if we have to validate based on the select or something, that we have to do. So this is all the concept I want to explain, that I have explained. If you want to implement your own this remaining method, let's go and implement, there is no issue, but the concept is this. In my next video we will learn about the determinations. Before going to next video, please like this video, share these videos with others as well. With that, thank you and happy learning.